What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. Tonight, Nick and I are gonna do a night dive. It just rained, so there is a lot of water moving through the system right now. We're hoping it's pretty clear closer up to the head spring, but only one way to find out. We're gonna take the trolling motorized canoe up to as far as we can outside the state park boundary and get in, dive, explore, and see what's out there. So hope you guys enjoy coming along for the ride. Back up a little bit. Okay, let's go. Whoever put this canoe on the car must have been really strong. So we have about 5 miles to go upstream on the river this evening, and since we would prefer to get at least some sleep tonight, we're pulling out my trolling motor setup. I'll talk a little bit more about it in the video later on, but it has come in handy quite a few times. Everything is working properly, so we should be all set to go. Fun fact, I would burn this myself. Spring 1 is inspired by Croc 1, which was Steve Irwin's research vessel, if anyone's curious. Safe to say we are pretty loaded down here. Oh, that's so much better. Oh my gosh. Well, at least in terms of lifting, it's still loud.
It was so screechy. It's because I left it in the rain like 5 days in a row.
Nice.
It probably just go too fast.
All right, we're off. Off to the races. Hey, but you're posing in the sense that although it had poured rain on us on the drive to the ramp, the overcast skies began to clear, setting us up for a beautiful night as we began our trek up the river. Here's the trolling motor setup in action. It's a little 40 pounds of thrust Minn Kota trolling motor with a marine grade battery. I just built the wood mount here and it works pretty well. It's made a lot of trips that would be a really long, difficult paddle much more accessible. I've definitely put in my hours of paddling before upgrading to this system, but it works pretty nice. I can go about like 6 miles if I'm going against the current, and then past that I have no idea if the battery will last, but if you go upstream at least you can ride the current down. So it's getting us there slowly but surely. This particular river has quite a few houses along it, which is not surprising considering how idyllic this waterfront property is. I mean, if I could afford it, I would love to live here. Although development anywhere near aquatic habitat always has an impact, this spring-fed river is remarkably resilient, and a thriving ecosystem can still be found beneath the surface. As we made our way upstream, I took out the drone and sent it up to capture a bird's eye view of the river's clear waters before the sun sank below the horizon. Alright, we got about a half mile more to go. It's getting foggy, sun's setting, super pretty out. So, dark is coming. As we neared the head spring, we had to switch from the trolling motor to paddles as we were entering a protected no motor zone. And right at this time, we saw some movement on the water surface, and sure enough, a sizable alligator was cruising across the river. There's a pretty big alligator right here. So this gator is probably about 7 to 8 feet long, which is pretty large for the system. A lot of times alligators get removed pretty quickly once they reach about 5 to 6 feet from this habitat, just because there's so much residential areas along the run and then a lot of recreation that happens here. So it's exciting to see one that's this large in the wild here. Hopefully he stays out of trouble and lives a long and happy alligator life. But man, what a beautiful creature. It's awesome. All right, so it's a little hard to see because it's getting pretty dark, but this is the swim area of Springs. And if you look in there, you can see that there's like no aquatic vegetation in the swim area, which makes sense because there's a lot of people jumping in and kicking up any vegetation that would be there. And it's important that places like that exist so that people can have access to the springs to enjoy them and learn to love them, because how are you going to protect something if you haven't learned to love it first? But as you'll see, even from already our trip up the river, but as we go back down and like dive in the water at night, you'll see just how much vegetation a spring naturally has. So if you see those really cool blue water and sandy soil patches, little pockets of that can be normal, but when it's to this extent, that's not normal levels of vegetation. Truly healthy wild springs have lots of flowing eelgrass, red ludwigia, lots of other really cool aquatic plants, which we will see in just a little bit when we get underwater. All right, so 2 of us decided to wait to put our wetsuits on because it's Florida and it's really hot. But that means that we have to figure out how to get into these wetsuits while in the canoe. So that's going to be a fun challenge, but we're going to do it. Put on. Quick reminder to always have your dive flag flying if snorkeling by your boat. Some other boaters came by us at high speeds with no nav lights, totally out of the dark. Thankfully, our boat had lights, but you have to be careful out here. Alrighty, let's go, Tab. Time to get underwater. As I dove in, I was happy to find that the rains hadn't affected the upstream visibility at all. With over 100 cubic feet of water per second flowing naturally into the river from the aquifer, the rains had little impact on the conditions. Nick and I spent a good while wandering above the aquatic meadows and looking for life hiding in between the blades of eelgrass and sagittaria. Along the edge of the river, we noticed some taller emergent vegetation that's bases looked like a type of reed. There were some sections it was so thick it almost appeared to form walls on the sides of the river. As we floated down the edge for a while, we finally came across a river cooter grabbing a breath of air in the dark. The cooter eventually continued on its way, and we followed it for a bit before it vanished into the dark blue. We also saw a smaller species of turtle, the loggerhead musk turtle. These little guys are often confused for baby snapping turtles, but this is actually a fully grown adult. They use their big heads and jaws to crush their prey, which, for the most part, is snails. As we continued on, we stumbled across a spring vent that was located in the middle of the river, far downstream from the head spring. It was like a bright blue hole on the bottom of the riverbed, and there were quite a few fish hanging around the mouth. This river has multiple spring vents scattered throughout it, all contributing to the overall flow. As we we came to a deeper section of the river, we kept our eyes peeled for an ancient species of fish, the long-nosed gar. And just as we were about to give up our search, a slender 3 to 4 foot fish appeared out of the dark. These fish can grow up to 6 feet in length and are pretty prehistoric in appearance. Their name comes from their lengthy mouth, which is lined with many very sharp teeth that they use to catch smaller fish. This individual hung out with us for a little while, but then continued on its way into the night, likely looking for its next meal. Not far from where we saw the gar, there was a bend in the river where the current was particularly strong. The grass growing there was incredibly lush and dense, and it rippled in the current as if it was a meadow blowing about in the wind on the side of a mountain. I spent nearly an hour filming the hypnotic movements of the blades as they slowly swirled around in the dark beneath me. It was the perfect way to end the night. It's about 1 a.m. right now, so I think it's time we about start making our way back home. 1 a.m. on the river means getting back to bed by about 4 a.m. for both of us. So at this point we packed our gear back into the canoe and made our way downstream to end our night adventure out on the river.